Benchmade All Metal Edition. So this is just going to be a overview, review, whatnot. Perhaps comparing these two models, pointing out their highlights, perhaps some of their lowlights, and then basically saying to buy this knife if you like it. So let's read off some specs, or let's let everybody know, or myself even. Actually, I know. So this is the 520 Presidio, like the first edition, well, that I know of. And this is the Presidio II, the new one. So older brother, younger brother, or older brother, younger brother, father, son, big brother, little brother. I don't know. This one came first, and I'm not sure. I got this in 2015 or so. Before they even went to closeout, I got this direct from Benchmade, and then a year or two later they were discontinued. And sometime in there they came out with the old Presidio II here. We got 570. I thought so, but I didn't want to be wrong. 520, 570. So let's do a little specs. So this boy right here, it's got an overall length of 8 1/4, blade length of 3.42. So for all of anybody that cares, it is approximately, the blade length is the same size as the Griptilian, and more or less overall, the overall length is pretty dang similar too. I think this one's just a tad bit longer. Blade thickness, what I pulled up was 0.13, so let's just say 0.125. Let's just call it an eighth. Blade steel is 154. Good old Benchmade 154. And then that Rockwell 58 to 61 is the claim to fame. Yeah. Handle thickness is 0.64, so she's a thick gal. Weighs in at 5.62 ounces. And it looks like the price of the going rate of this guy before that was done was about $165 online, from what I could pull up. So getting over to the Presidio II, overall length of 8 3/4, so it's a 1/2 inch longer overall. Blade length of standard 125, 1/8. Blade length of 3.72, so it's got, it's a good 1/2 inch, if not longer than this. So, in my opinion, proper. Handle length of 5.0 inches. Handle thickness of 0.63, so it's actually dang near as thick as this. For some reason, I always imagine this to be a little thinner, but it's not. It's about the same. Weight is 6.10, so it's about a 1/2 ounce heavier, about a 1/2 ounce heavier. And it looks like the going rate for this particular knife, black blade manual, is $191 and change at this time at one particular dealer. Okay, so I think I can start with this. So basically, it's a bigger knife. It's a longer knife. Kind of a different blade shape and different steel, different grip. But it maintains pretty much the same idea, same focus, and then ups the steel. Probably improves the steel. I am definitely a fan of 154 CM as done by Benchmade, ProTech, Emerson. Those are the knives I've experienced with that steel, and I got absolutely no issues with it. Seems to hold a great edge. I would never ask for more. But the cool thing about Benchmade is honestly they don't really knock the price up too much when they theoretically upgrade the steel. It looks like the Griptilian going right now is apparently $5 more than the 154 CM. So, I'm lukewarm on it. I'm fine with it. All I know is I've had great luck with 154. Works fine for me and absolutely does not rust. unless you extended periods in salt water, and I've had it in salt water and have had no issues, but I always rinsed it off. So with this guy, so there's a lot of size similarities with the Griptilian. It's an ounce or two heavier, I think. And it's got a really cool finger guard, kind of the way that grip is. I mean, this is a really neat knife, and I understand why they discontinued it or came out with another version. I mean, that's fine. If you can get your hand on one of these, and there's a couple of things that I'll mention that might turn you off to doing that, but man, as far as like, and this knife has not been used much. I've carried it a little bit, but then I'll get to a problem that I've had, and then I'll kind of make my point. You can kind of see that right there, but I'll talk about it. So it's got the really cool Benchmade. They have this on the. Sorry, I got some smokeless tobacco on my finger. Really cool serrated grip. Kind of like they have on the Infidel, I think. Very similar. I don't own an Infidel, but I handle it every time I go to a store that has one. I always play with it. But some differences between, say, the grip. So they're not the same knife by any means. Same designer, Presidio. So you can kind of see, and then getting into that, I don't know who actually designed this. There's no markings of Presidio on it. So I don't know if he had anything necessarily due to it, but I think they honored his model. I think they honored it with this, but I don't necessarily know if he was personally involved with it. So you can see a little bit of handle shape difference. So it's kind of like a Griptilian for a guy that wanted a metal handle, which would be me. I got no problem with this, but like if I can get a metal, I mean that's definitely my preference. So there's a lot of similarities here, size-wise and kind of shape-wise. So there's a little bit of blade shape difference, and then obviously the grip is different. But this is just, I mean, I do like this more than the Griptilian, the shape. And I have no problems with this traction at all. And I'm going to start using this knife a lot more after a fix that I did. And it's kind of a test that I'm running, but I will talk about that. Fully lined, routed out liners, but full liners, pretty thick. Good old phosphor bronze washers. Just your standard Benchmade bomb-proof construction. Really nice. So while I have it on my mind, let's go ahead and talk about this. So the one design flaw, I think, and I mean I am by no means a knife designer or expert. However, I have used these axis locks for a long time. So I got a theory of mine. This will break a spring if you're flipping it. Because I flipped this thing a lot because I was trying to break it in, and I'll get to that too. But then I kept breaking springs. So what I do is I fabricate my own. This one, though, I did replace from Benchmade, I think once or twice, and I robbed another Griptilian for both springs, ended up breaking one side for some reason breaks and the other one doesn't, or I've lucked out. I think I've only broken 2 springs in this knife, but they were both on, let's see here, this side, and this scale is easier to take off because for some reason that does not really want to come out on that side. The stop pin, adjustable stop pin, is kind of difficult to get out, and I didn't want to force anything into it, and I didn't need to because that one never broke. But I think what happens is for that axis bar, no, actually I'll use this one. No. I might get up here and see if I can get a better view of this. So for the axis bar, to clear the back of that tang, you can see how much travel there is. That's my homemade spring there, and I didn't do a very good job on this particular one, and I'll explain why. I mean, it works perfect, but you can see it's not fit on there quite right. Usually they are, but I'll get to why this particular one isn't. But it doesn't scrape or drag or anything, so it's fitted properly. But you can see how far that spring has got to travel to clear the back of that blade. So what that does, I think it causes failure in the spring, more so than a model like this. Like this, I've had this for 4 years now. Use it a lot. It might set a record for how many times the thing has been flicked or, you know, opened. I can't say, but no problems with it. And I think that why that is because the travel, the amount that bar's got to travel to clear the back of that blade is so much. This one is so much longer than that. So it causes fatigue quicker and it causes that to break. It just overflexes that spring. And that might be why they discontinued this particular model. Now, I'm pretty solid on that. Another thing that I'm not so solid on is, well, for one, this knife, I consider it especially or mentally challenged. It's a special knife because you can see, like, and this is the only Benchmade I've ever had where I know people claim to have problems with some, but this is the only one I've ever had where the blade's off center, and it's fairly off center. It doesn't rub, so it's got that going for it, but it's off center. And the action on it has always been awkward. Now, for whatever reason, and I've oiled this several times, and I've tried to break it in, but for some reason, this thing's sat for a couple of years now, but it actually drops free. And then there's zero blade play. I mean, that thing is in there. The tolerance of this things are super tight, but it actually drops free. But what happens is it hits the back of that tang, and there's kind of a kicker on the back. This might be easier to look at. It's like as soon as the back of the tang of the blade, I get that to focus, rolls over on this one, it's very smooth. It's like a round, it's rounder. Whereas the back of this, which is supposed to be round, it seems like there's just like almost a lip on it. As soon as it breaks over a cam, kind of like a compound bow, breaks over that cam and it just fires out. So it's kind of cool. It's kind of got a kick on it coming out. But closing it, hey, you got to pull that lock bar all the way back, and then it's just a little bit more awkward. It's just not quite as free dropping as that when to completely close. I mean, you can do it, but it just takes, you got to really pull that bar back, make sure you got that thing pulled all the way back. And then I can feel that there's kind of a lip on the tang. So that's kind of a, I can't say that that's the way it's supposed to be. I haven't sent this back in. I mean, I could send it back in and just say, hey, I'll pay for it, but I just want a new blade because this one is not centered. And I'm thinking, just looking at the washers and everything, that the blade is ground odd up there in the tang area. Because it's off, and the frame seems to be fine, and just the whole action thing seems kind of janky, kind of herky-jerky, unlike any other Benchmade I own. So I don't know if that was designed that way. The long travel on the tang, though, I think that's just a mechanical design flaw, and they rectified it by discontinuing it and coming out with this beauty. So odd, I would say. However, it's a really neat knife. I mean, that thing, to me, it's really cool. I like the grip on it. It's all metal. I mean, it's kind of like my top preference. I do like all metal knives, such as this. So that's being that was my favorite. But as far as manuals go, I'm not a real fan of Axis Autos. I don't see the purpose in them, but I mean, hey, they could do it, so they did it. It's fine. Yeah, so great knife, definitely one of my favorites, and I'm happy now that I got it fixed, so I can get into that real quick. So what I've done, here's the broken. They're really easy to make for anybody that hasn't made springs for themselves. I mean, I've been doing it for a few years, but you can see how this one broke, and that's basically how they usually break. But if you go to the hardware store, you can get spring steel stock. And what my experience is, and honestly, I was breaking Griptilian, I got like the AWT, whatever weapons technology, whatever metal scales. For whatever reason, I was breaking springs in that, and I don't know if it was because of impact shock. That was kind of a thought. I thought, well, maybe it's impact shock because it's all metal. Maybe that causes them to break. But then I've had no issues with this. So I think it is just the amount that the axis bar has to travel. So this, it's kind of hard to see, and I realize that. This is one size thicker, I think, than a Benchmade spring. So they're harder to bend. That is why this one looks kind of funny. It's because actually it is kind of hard to bend. Like the last time, every time I've replaced them, I've gotten the correct size, matched up. And on that knife I was using on that weapons technology, whatever, applied weapons technology scale, I was breaking springs in that. So I ended up building a bunch, and I got better and better at it. But this time I ended up with a thicker one. Like, I think it's one size up. Don't quote me. If you go to the hardware store to buy spring steel stock, I would match it up. What I would do is I'd buy one that's this size, and I'd buy one that's a size up. This one's a size up, and I've had this on here for 3 days, and I haven't had any issues, and I've flicked it quite a few times. It is stiffer, but I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing, and it does fit in the holes that are in the liner. So it does work, at least on this particular one. Like, one size up does fit, and it does work. It is harder to bend, but they are still easy to bend. All I've used every time is just Leatherman. Any needle nose plier will work. If you're working with the correct size, it's much easier. Like, you can actually bend everything nice and round. The thicker one wants to kind of come in at angles, but you can still do it. So if anybody watches this and is curious, then it's super easy to do. Like I didn't do it this time, but just take a good spring and you can just match it up perfectly, put it in there, it should fit. What you want to do is make sure that the cutouts that are in here, obviously you don't want it going out past the cutouts or really touching the cutout, the edges. Just make sure it fits in there, and it should be good to go. Okay, so kind of got that taken care of. Now let's get on to this work of art. So what they did, and I like it when this happens, when they actually come out with something. Now I like this knife, but this is a major improvement over that one. It's got a much better, just buttery action. I mean, out of this and my Adamas have the best action out of all my Axis lock knives. I just like the way it sounds. Super easy, super free, nice free dropping blade, like no blade play, tolerances are tight, perfect centering, like just money. Everything about this knife is it's perfect. I'd be bummed if I got it and had scratches all over it, and I'd consider that a finish issue. But as far as fit goes, I mean, it's absolute perfection. No blade play, left, right, up, down. Nice, perfect action, perfect centering, so the fit's good. It does come with a painted, and I put it back on here, but because it looks, it's new. But my preferred pocket clip is black oxide Benchmade, like their standard 3-hole clip there. But so I do have another one that I put on. That I've had on there. Now I put this lowrider back on there, and I'll probably go with it. It's kind of nice. So fit and finish on this thing, perfect. This one, I will use it. It might break in a little bit better now that I'll actually take it out and use it. And I do have oil in there. And when I got it out of the box, and it's been in the box for a couple of years, it was, and I had oiled it previously, but it was all gummed up. So I think it's back, and it's got that 154 CM blade and no serrations. I think actually the edge geometry on this is actually better. I think it's thinner behind the edge on this knife than these guys. So it'll be kind of cool to take this out and test it this summer and put it to some good work. Just see how much better this thing cuts, because I kind of like to do that. I kind of I rotate. I go out on a fire, and I'll bring along something to fool around with, kind of test the steel, test the blade grind, just whittling wood and stuff, just to see. And then this one too. This one, I have not taken this one to work yet, just because it's just so perfect, but it does have the S30V. So there's a possibility that I may get another one of these and just keep this kind of as a safe queen, more or less, just a non-work knife, and then use that other one with a plain, with no serrations, just a better whittler. But I mean, this is really thin behind the edge too, and it does cut because I have whittled with it. But I pretty much avoided taking it to work because they do get work pretty good. But that's what this knife is designed for. And as far as like grip goes, I mean, I think it's just perfect. And I really like the metal. It does have a different finish. This has more of that tacky anno finish. This one is more polished, smoother. It's still anodized, but it doesn't have that powdery, tacky feel to it. So, you know, I mean, I'm kind of neutral on that. Like either one is great. I have no preference. I do kind of like this. This has like almost like a rubbery feel to it. And this one does not, but this one might be in the long run more durable because I have used it and there's not a mark on it. And this one's been carried, not really used, but it does have a few wear marks on it. Let's see what else. What kind of facts, figures can I throw up here? Yeah, all metal construction. There's nothing in here that's not metal. I mean, you got phosphor bronze washers as usual. Aluminum frame, kind of probably 6000 series aluminum frame. Stainless steel coated liners, and then of course a steel blade, steel pocket clip, and then same for this, and obviously steel springs. So just kind of another kind of Benchmade, what Benchmade does right, you know, as usual. Obviously, like if you want to do, like I don't know how much more this would buy over this. This is obviously going to be $50-$60 cheaper for this over that. This one does happen to have D2 steel, which is theoretically an upgrade over 154 CM. And how Benchmade does do the D2, I really do like it. But as said, I do like this, and my experience with their S30V, because I have my Crooked River, I've used that quite a bit. Great, works out great. So if you're in the market, probably harder to find now, probably overpriced secondary market. But this is, for me, highly recommended, in my opinion. Like I would recommend this to somebody if they're after something. I mean, in Benchmade's line, you got lots of options. You know, you got the Contigo, you got the Adamas. Now they're coming out with a new model, the Turret, which I'm interested in. But don't forget about this. You know, yeah, great option. Great cutter too. Great slicer. All right, that's all I got. Hope you have a good rest of your day.